I asked my AI agent to be GLaDOS, and now it's snarky. I'll work wonderfully while you do whatever it is that humans do. Look at this. I asked for help with my YouTube channel. How vague. That's wonderful. I love guessing games. This is fun. Hey folks, welcome back to Rebuilding OpenClaw from scratch. Today we are giving our AI agent a personality. We're giving it memory. We're giving it a soul. So if you're interested in that, stay tuned. If you want to see the beginning of the series, check out the link here. That's where we cover the agent loop. So talking about where we left off, last episode we built out the agent loop, right? So it's not just an LLM, there's a harness built around a large language model to handle constructing the system prompt, handing off tools, etc. We also talked about 3 tools that we gave our agent: the read file tool, the write file tool, and the execute tool to help execute bash scripts. And then we also talked briefly about session history, so that's just persisting the conversation log. And so that was cool, but it left a lot to be desired, right? We had this hard-coded system prompt, there was no personality, and there was no memory. Yes, we had session history, which is kind of memory, but we didn't have this long persisted memory where the agent could write to and refer in future conversations if a new session began. The bulk of the work that we're going to do today is around the system prompt. We're going to be doing a lot of prompt engineering. And so where we left off last time is a very simple prompt, kind of defines, hey, you are a personal AI assistant, here's a time, and here's where you're supposed to work out of. We're going to bolster that up today to kind of give our agent more personality and more to work with. And so, yes, we're going to have this same system prompt to start, but then we're going to add a handful of different markdown files. So the first file is we're going to add an agents file, and this is basically a little bit expanded system prompt, kind of behaviorally telling the agent how it's supposed to work. Next, we're going to have a bootstrap file, which is basically the onboarding file. It is only there for the first run, and it prompts the agent to interview the user and then update the soul and the user file. And we'll talk about those right now. The soul file is the main core of the agent. It's its personality, how it behaves. So like you can see here, for example, you are Jarvis, you're calm, you're capable, professional, you handle things without making it weird. Next, we have the user markdown file, and this keeps track of everything about the user that the AI assistant is helping. And then finally, we have the memory file. This is the long-term memory. So it might keep track of projects you're working on, other preferences that may not make sense to go under the user file, and so on and so forth. Now that we've got that out of the way, I want to give you a quick overview of the files that we've changed and the files that we've added. So we'll have this agent memory file, which handles seeding our workspace with these other markdown files that we'll need. It also kind of handles reading these files. We have this context file where we now pull the construction of the system prompt into this context file that will then pull all these files together and package it up nicely for our agent. Now we have our soul file, our user file, our memory file, our agents file, and our bootstrap file. These are all markdown files that we are storing in our code base, and then on the first run, it copies it into the workspace for the AI agent, and then it instructs the AI agent to fill them out as necessary. Now, everyone's favorite part, let's look at the code. So let's first look at these special markdown files. We have this agents file. It defines what tools we have, right? Our read, write, execution file. We have our memory file, and then these are the other files there. So this is the main kind of main file system prompty type thing that kind of points to some of the other files. Here's our memory file, notes that persist across conversations. Update this when you learn something worth keeping. The agent will expand on this. We now have the soul file. We can see this note here. Use this file to describe who you are, your personality, core values, communication patterns, etc. And then we kind of have a nice default here to kind of define a base level AI agent. And then we have this user file. It's just a template. And so it has things like name, time zone, projects, preferences. And the expectation is that the agent would fill these out later. Now let's look at our bootstrap file. This file is only injected on the first run, and then it's deleted. So this communicates to the agent, hey, this is your first time running. Ask the user 3 questions one at a time. First, what should I call you? Second, what is your time zone? This is probably important later for things like cron and heartbeat. But we'll talk about that later. And then what kind of personality should I have? Once you have their answers, do the following silently, write user and soul files with what you learned, and then delete the file. And so this explains kind of the bash command to do that. And then introduce yourself and tell them that you're ready. So that's our main template files. You can see here, it's under this folder in our code base called workspace templates. These are all copied over to the .ai assistant in your root folder on the first run. So that's these files here. We can take a look at the main, let's see, actually we'll go over here to memory. We've added this memory manager to do the seeding of the templates. I just mentioned that earlier. If the files don't exist, it will create them. And then this reads all the files for use in a different place. The context, this is where we build the system prompt. We have this, you are the personal AI assistant. Here's a current date and time. Here's a workspace folder, some more information here. And then this is where we read all of the memory. And so I can click on it here, all of these files, go back here to context, and then appends them to the system prompt here. So we kind of have each of those sections in the system prompt. We already looked at the memory. Here's our loop. I only made one small change here to truncate the results that were being printed after a tool call is run. We don't really need to talk about that. So in this file here, we don't really have any huge changes. We're pulling in our memory manager. We have our system prompt that we're now calling from our context file, and so on and so forth. So with that, you can see not a ton of changes. Most of them are just markdown file changes that are actually just getting injected into our system prompt. So we pretty much have the same agent loop, same session storage, etc., but we now have this extra context for running this agent. Demo time. I went to the AI Assistant folder in my root directory. This is kind of where the agent, when it's running, kind of keeps track of things. I deleted my past session just for a clean run. If you have been following along, you may want to do that too if you're fine with losing that information. But without further ado, let's jump in here, and I'm going to run Python 3 main.py. So here's our AI assistant. You'll see here that all of these files just got added over here. I'm going to say hello. I see this is the first time running, so I'd like to get to know you a bit. What should I call you? Josh. Nice to meet you. What time zone? EST. What kind of personality? I'm going to say GLaDOS. I don't know if any of you played the game Portal, but this was kind of the AI in that game, and it was very kind of snarky and fun. So I'm going to add that here, and let's see what the AI agent does with this. All right, so it wrote the user file, it wrote the soul file. Here we go. Well, hello, Josh. I'm online and ready to assist you. I've configured myself according to your fascinating choice of personality model. I'm sure we'll work together wonderfully, or at least I'll work wonderfully while you do whatever it is that humans do. So it is following that soul there. What do you need help with? And please try to make it interesting. My YouTube channel. Let's see what it says. How vague. That's wonderful. I love guessing games. What about your YouTube channel, Josh? And then it kind of goes through here. Do try to be specific. I'm very capable, but even if I can't read your mind yet. So this is pretty fun. It is fully embodying kind of the personality that I gave it, which is a lot of fun. So you can do all sorts of things. I won't play around with that more, but let's look at these workspace files that I added. We can see here that we've got our session log. We don't need to go through that. We have the agents file. I don't think that's changed. We have memory. Nothing crazy in here. We have soul. I'm GLaDOS. It explains that I'm helpful, but with a distinctive edge. It wrote all of this because it knows what GLaDOS is. You could just tell it, this is how I want you to run, and update your soul accordingly. And then we have the user file where we have Josh, EST, and then projects here. So yeah, you can tell it to do different things. I'll go back and say, hey, remember that I like tacos. And let's see, I would expect this. Okay, so it read the user and it wrote to the user here. Nice, likes tacos. So maybe some more prompt engineering could be done here to delineate what goes in memory and what goes in user, but hopefully you get the gist here. It's using its existing tools of reading and writing to modify these existing files that are injected to the system prompt at the beginning. There's one more thing that I want to show you. I want to show you that this persists across sessions. So I'm going to exit, then I'm going to run this again. First I'll clear, and then I'll run python 3.main. Then I'll say, hey, who are you and what is my favorite food? Let's see. I'm GLaDOS, well, an assistant inspired by her. And your favorite food? Tacos. You literally just told me to remember that approximately 30 seconds ago. Beginning to suspect this is some kind of test. How pedestrian. Okay, so we can see that not only do we have a soul, we have memory, but it's also persisting across sessions. That's it for today. Hopefully that was fun. I had a blast. I think it's super cool to see how powerful it is, basically by doing some prompt engineering and having the agent use its existing tools to kind of read and write some pre-existing markdown files. That's how you get a simple personality, simple memory. Obviously, it could be a lot more advanced than this, but this is a great starting point, and hopefully you can see just how powerful it is. So up next, we're going to talk about Access Anywhere. This will be the next episode. I'm going to integrate with Telegram. And yeah, I don't know exactly all the different things I'll cover in that episode, but I'll post a link to it here. And so if you're interested, please check it out. And if it's helpful, like and subscribe.